Always learning. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. If you've been watching the channel for a little while, you might notice that this scenery behind me is a little bit different. I don't think I've ever made a vlog from here before. Not too different, because I'm still in New Zealand, and in fact I'm not that far from Auckland, which is where I live at the moment. But I'm in a small town called Thames, and I'm down here, staying here because I'm attending a workshop. And that kind of ties in with the topic of this episode of Chi Life. So over I think it's been the last 3 weekends in a row, I have had the opportunity to attend different workshops. And of course these workshops have all been about things to do with health and our energy, of course, because that's pretty much what I tend to focus on. But it's been really nice to have that in-person interaction, which has been a bit missing over the last couple of years. And nice just to be out there and sitting as a student rather than, as so often, I'm teaching most of the time in different ways. Of course, a lot of teaching online over the last couple of years, and even prior to that. And in the past, often teaching a lot of my own workshops, running retreats and so on. Now, I am looking forward to being able to start teaching more workshops again, live workshops in person, running retreats and things again. Hasn't happened quite yet. Hoping probably not this year, maybe next year that'll start to happen again. Really looking forward to that too. But it's really nice to spend some time being a student or a participant, depending on how you want to think of it, in these other workshops. And it's interesting because sometimes when I talk to people, because obviously just in general conversation, people ask, oh, what are you up to this weekend, or where have you been, if I've been away, something like that. And I say, oh, I've been to a workshop on this or that. And sometimes people have, they're a bit surprised. They're like, oh, what are you doing going to a workshop on that? Because of course the kind of workshops I go to are often on topics that I already know a lot about. So 2 of the workshops over the last couple of weekends have been on breathing, different things to do with breathing, and the one that I'm attending at the moment is one to do with a particular type of body work. And they all tie in with things that I do know a lot about, that I've been practicing for decades and teaching, and even teaching other teachers for a long time. So why would I be going to these workshops? Surely I already know enough, if not it all, sort of thing. And I think certainly the process of learning, or the experience you expect from attending workshops and things like that, does change as you gain more knowledge and experience, because you're less likely actually to encounter something completely new. You're likely to see a lot of things that are familiar to you, and so if anything, I think I need, and I think anyone in this sort of situation who already has a lot of knowledge and experience needs to actually be really careful coming to learn something from someone else, to not assume that you know it all, and to be careful not to project too much of what you do know onto what's being taught, because it can be really easy to see something that's similar to things you may have learnt, may have done in the past, and then assume, oh yeah, I know that, but it might not be quite the same, or there might be some details that are different. And if you assume too much, you might miss some of the value that you can get from learning in these different contexts. And so for myself, I always find there's something new to learn attending workshops with different presenters, different teachers. And often it's not necessarily that there's a new theory or new principles that I'm not familiar with necessarily. Often it can just be a different approach. Someone looking at it with a somewhat different perspective, talking about it in a different way, applying it in a somewhat different way. And there can be value there. Sometimes it can even be just observing the response of other participants in the workshops and how they respond to the different things that are being taught. And so there's always some new details, some new nuance to bring out of these things by mixing and mingling with other people. And that's part of it as well, of course, is to develop that connection with other people doing the similar types of work as myself, teaching similar sorts of things, develop that connection, and even support them as part of that too. So another thing that can come out of attending these different workshops is even, again, so not necessarily anything new, although, I'm always hopeful, because you never know, sometimes there might be something completely new. And it's great to have that opportunity, every once in a while, something, oh, never thought of that before. But something else that comes out of it is even not so much the learning of something new, but an opportunity to reflect back on your own knowledge, or in this case, my own knowledge of different things. Because it's really easy when you're doing a practice or teaching or whatever that is to get into a little bit of a habit, a little bit of a pattern. That could even be a little bit of a rut in some cases, of doing things in a certain way, focusing on the same things. And then having the opportunity to see how someone else focuses and works on maybe some very similar things but somewhat differently gives you an opportunity to think a little bit more deeply about your own knowledge and things that maybe you're already familiar with, but you've sort of become a little bit set in your ways about what you do. And so certainly one of the things for me that has come out of some of the workshops that I've attended over the last few weeks is, as I mentioned, two of them were about breathing, different aspects of breathing. And one of the things that has come out of it is actually a little bit of inspiration to review some of the breathing practices that I haven't gone into deeply for quite some time, that I've sort of, they haven't been front of mind, haven't been something that I've focused on, but to actually dive back into some of those a bit in my personal practice and refresh and re-look at them again. And so sometimes the result of learning from other people is, again, not so much something new, but an opportunity to reflect on what you already know from a different perspective and to maybe gain a little bit more from that. So the workshop that I'm attending at the moment, it's an interesting one. Again, it brings together a bunch of different principles, in a way, a bunch of different practices or aspects of practices or techniques, and none of which I'm not familiar with, at least in what I've seen so far on the first day. I've got another day ahead of me today. There might be something new there. But applied in a different way, applied in a very specific way. And that in itself makes it its own unique, and for me, new thing. It's like, oh, that's an interesting way to put all of these principles together and apply it. And lots of people, from what I hear from talking to other people, seem to have benefited a lot from this particular approach of using these principles, these techniques. So fascinating to see them applied in this way and to experience that application for myself. And again, even though the component principles being used I'm familiar with, the specific application I'm not. And so there's something new within that. So another really interesting experience, and maybe you'll get to hear more about this particular technique in a future podcast. I'm hoping that I might get an interview with someone lined up about that, but we'll see. I haven't got that sorted out yet. Anyway, later this week, another podcast is going to come out, another podcast interview, and that's with one of the presenters of one of the breathing workshops that I attended over the last couple of weekends. And we had a really good discussion. I hope you'll enjoy that. Of course, as you know, people who've know me well, which I guess, a fair few of you follow this channel, yeah, I teach a lot about breathing, but interesting to talk to someone else who also has dived deep into breathing and comes at it from his perspective and what his background is, and yeah, I think there's things to learn from that. So yeah, so this vlog is part of keeping my promise. I said, going forwards, there's a new direction for the Chi Life channel. A lot of it is going to be interviews with people, which I think are great, fascinating to learn from different people. But I'm still going to do more of these vlog type videos from time to time as well, where I just talk about other things or show other things. So you don't need to worry if you have been following the channel and you like the kind of videos that I've been making so far. There are still going to be videos like that on the channel, like this one, as well as the podcast interviews. It's not just going to be podcast interviews. So you should be able to tell the different videos apart pretty easily by the titles of the videos and by the thumbnails. That'll give you a clear indication if it's a big long interview with someone or if it's a little shorter video like this one where I talk about something. So yeah, hopefully there's some food for thought in there. It was what I was thinking about, having had this great opportunity to attend all these workshops just close together. As I mentioned before, I do look forward to, hopefully not too far away, starting to teach some of my own in-person workshops and retreats and things like that again, as well. Of course, I enjoy teaching online as well. And I'll continue to look out for opportunities when there's workshops on topics that I think might be interesting for me to attend myself as well. If you've liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those good things, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.